everybody, and thank you for listening to I Bought a Microphone. Your humble host is here today to bring you another Amundsen on Amundsen interview. This one about the documentary film They Shall Not Grow Old by Peter Jackson. So, we're just going to get right into it and enjoy.
Yeah, I had Tim pick a movie, and then I picked a movie. And since he picked a movie, his favorite movie from that last year, I picked my favorite movie from last year, which happened to be a documentary by Peter Jackson called They Shall Not Grow Old.
They shan't.
They shan't. So it's
They'll fucking die.
Yeah.
Can't, get a chance.
So just a quick summary for those of you who aren't familiar with the movie. It's a documentary where Peter Jackson assembled footage from cameras that were, all over the place in England in the early, 1910s, and also took footage of the war, and then he combined that with audio interviews that were on file with the BBC and this war historian society called IDW. And he pieced it all together to kind of tell the story of World War I in a way that you haven't really had a chance to see it like maybe you would with World War II. And then another thing that he does, which is really even cooler, he goes a step further, and as we get into the war, he actually pushes in on the documentary footages and then colorizes it and adds sound effects so you can actually feel what it was sort of like to be there and be part of it, and
well, at
see.
least if it was filmed in a modern kind of
Exactly.
Context.
I mean, most of the shots are staged because cameras back then you couldn't just have a dude with a camera running through the trenches. You have to set that shit up and have a crank and all sorts of crazy stuff. But still, there were some actually pretty cool shots. And so anyway, what are your initial impressions of? And we don't have to worry about spoilers because this was 90, 100 years ago. So
Wait. Who won?
I believe that England and France won.
Oh, good. Spoiler alert.
And some people might say the U.S., but we really
Yeah, I thought
didn't get that involved.
I really liked it. I hope that this is the start of this kind of restoration for documentary footage, because I thought it was just amazing. It felt like it was filmed in color and with audio track rolling and all that stuff. They did an amazing job.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
to actually get to go back and see all that stuff in color, how it actually looks, and how everyone. One thing I thought that was funny is that everyone's teeth are just brutal.
Horrible.
Just the worst teeth, man.
Yeah, brown and but that's
But yeah,
that's
the
the
way it
stereotype.
was.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of one example of all the historical perspective you can get from this kind of in-depth review.
And they also intercut in things that they couldn't film. They have photographs that again they've colorized. So like that when they're talking about how the stench of death is just permeating everything, and then they go and show all the different corpses and dead horses and just boots sticking out of the mud and just really really unpleasant, but very cool
but
to
effective,
effective, exactly, very awesome to see that type of thing. Now, one thing that struck me throughout the whole movie, which I found fascinating, was just how fucking positive these guys were for the most part. Nobody was like, man, fuck this shit, this was bullshit, man, slugging through the mud. They're all just like, I mean, mud sucks, but you just deal with it.
Yeah.
They were all very, very English about the whole thing. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that perspective, and I was wondering if, like, because I got the same sense that you did, that like, wow, these guys are really kind of positive about all this, and I don't know if Peter Jackson and all the guys who made the film were just kind of like
cherry picking,
cherry picking, or if this was a general kind of attitude.
I don't know. If you look at if you look at the credits, all the people, I mean, they went through like 100 different guys, and they all had the same thing. Now, I don't know if they were like towing the company line or whatever, or if they generally just,
And maybe that's just the kind of person they bred back then, but that is not a modern attitude at all.
Yeah, definitely. No, if the World War I happened these days, yes. No, #sad would be right up front there. Yeah. No, but
I don't know. Actually, now thinking about it, I guess it's just a soldier's attitude. You just in it and you deal with it. Because I listened to a podcast called Jocko, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he does a lot of interviews with military guys, ex-military guys.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just that's the attitude. I feel.
And
like,
I mean,
now that I think about it,
I've watched plenty of stuff on World War II, and most of those guys are not bitter about the experience, though. A lot of the ones I've seen are American people, so they're a bit more in touch with their emotions than these old English guys. But again, I think they're also a product of a completely different generation, because you're talking, like one thing that was really amazing was like how many kids actually fought in this war. Like we're talking people that are like 15, 16, and 17 signing up
I
to
feel
go
like they
over
talked
to
about that
France.
for like 10, 15 minutes. All these guys.
Did.
Yeah, saying that they were 15, 16, lying, and the guys would directly tell them, you know what, you wanna say that again? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm 19. Yeah.
Yeah, go back outside and have a birthday.
Right, go back outside and have a birthday. Yeah, so they needed the bodies. Like, they were doing whatever it could to get the conscript.
And again, like, they don't even, like, I love one thing that they do is they don't even really talk about the motivation for the war. Because, again, World War I especially wasn't really for anything. Like, it was a bunch of, there was, from what my history coming back is, so there was the balance of power, which was supposed to keep peace in the world. So, like, Prussia and Germany and Austria all had mutual aggression treaties, so that if they went to war, all the other countries would go to war. So, Britain and France and somebody else, like Denmark or some shit, Holland, would had the same thing, mutual aggression. So if anyone went to war with anybody, everybody would go to war. So it was just so horrible to think of a war on that massive scale that there's no way that it could possibly happen. And then, of course, it did happen.
And then cut to...
And nobody gains or really loses anything. Like, it was completely for nothing, almost. Like, yeah, bad news. But, yeah, so it was really cool, like all the little stories that everyone had, and I like the little cartoons that what was that guy's name? Bradfather or something, whatever. Like little cartoons that they had spliced in there, and the ads.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the ads?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. That it was mostly just propaganda, right? Now thinking back, it's like it was just get out there and fight.
That's all. Yeah.
And that's kind of like coming back to what you're saying, that the war really wasn't about anything.
No.
And so they didn't have it didn't seem like there was like a boogeyman or anything like that that we attribute to say some of the World War II propaganda.
Right.
You obviously had Nazis that you could throw on there, or the Japanese caricatures.
Oh God, Tojo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very flattering.
And so that was absent. That kind of racist caricature that you could galvanize people with.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
didn't really realize until you said that, but yeah, it was like kind of like I'm terrible with history. I don't study a lot of it. I'm bad with that. But now that you say it, it's like, yeah, what was the war about? And you're saying it was nothing.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, I'm sure if you get down to the nitty gritty, people were trying to take this land from this people and all of that. But really, what caused it on such a massive scale was just that was the balance of power.
Yeah, and the
But-
thing that just got him out there, it seemed like just so you could get out and fight, like
Exactly.
just be a man, and then this is what men do. The one that really stuck in my mind was, what it was like, the women of Britain say go.
Yes.
That was the propaganda. I was like, well, can't argue with that. That's
And
what the women want.
also, the guy who was men of our age, they didn't. They weren't expected to know things. They were expected to do what they were told.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny how bald faced that kind of propaganda looks to us, to our modern kind of cynical eye.
Yes.
Because I saw that and I wanted to roll my eyes like, oh, like the wives don't want the husbands to go. Like,
No,
who's going to provide for the family? Who's going to farm the fucking, like, there's no way all the women of Britain said,
Yeah.
you should go out and fight this war.
And especially all the mothers with their sons going.
The mothers
No,
and
absolutely.
sons. Exactly. That's another.
Absolutely not. I know my mom fucking absolutely not. Would not approve of that decision.
Never hear the end of it.
But yeah, it does. He does a lot of cool stuff when they do this section talking about the artillery and how that cannon goes off, and then the tiles on the building nearby all rattle off.
They drop off the roof. Yeah, just all that artillery footage was some of my favorite stuff. Like, you see the absolute power that those guns are utilizing. Just
right.
That shot with the tile, just the building shaking and dropping the tile off, shows you that the concussive force that those cannons were putting out. And one thing we know nowadays is that, like, what damage that does to your actual brain, your physical brain, that kind of constant concussion.
Yeah, that's why they wore helmets in World War II when they were doing that stuff. But and then there's the one of the most amazing things I saw was the I didn't even know they had this, was the shrapnel round.
Oh,
it launches in the air, it explodes, and then it just rains down in the just fire, like fucking red hot bullets into the trench and just rips people to shreds.
We also had like flechettes and stuff like that. It's my understanding that the World War I helmet is actually designed for that kind of warfare.
Right.
It's got that wide brim because of that kind of artillery that they're using, the stuff that explodes and rains down on you. If you have a wider brim, you're protecting more of your body from the top down. So they're not just silly hats. It's like actually had a direct function in that kind of warfare.
Yeah. And then they go through like their rations and what they eat. What the fuck is plum and apple jam? What is that? That does not sound appealing to me at all.
I don't know. Maybe it's like apple butter. Is it?
Yes. Well, I don't really like apple butter either. I've never had.
Oh, really?
Never had anything made with plums, but.
Me neither. But apple butter's fucking awesome.
Okay. Yeah. Not really my deal, but.
Yeah. The funny thing is it's like I didn't even realize this until, they do a second kind of documentary at the end of the film.
Right.
Explaining how they put this film together. So from start to end in the processes and stuff like that. And I didn't even really realize it until the end that this is just years of footage that they actually just cobbled together to make some kind of cohesive narrative,
Right.
to give some kind of generic narrative. I was the whole time I was watching that movie, I was like, what battle is this? What battle are they fighting? Why haven't, I want to know what battle this is, and it turns out that it was just kind of a generic battle all along the Western Front. This was happening.
Yeah, there's no specific time or place for the thing, because
Right.
yeah, because it wasn't a documentary that was made about the war, so they had to piece it together, which they actually do a really good job, I think, of
Yeah.
kind of telling the whole story of what it was like, but not going into any specific, battle or fight or
Well, they did it so well. What
regimentation.
I'm saying is,
Yeah.
I thought it was one actual battle, and it's like I was a little disappointed when I found out that it was just cobbled footage, but now I'm thinking like, actually, that's pretty amazing. They did a really good job taking all this material and turning it into one story.
Yeah. And I like near the end of the movie, they they tell the story of how they actually, near the end of the war, they started actually, instead of just sitting in their trenches, they actually started pushing forward. They actually started making drives because they were actually defeating the Germans. Finally, they were pushing them back. And of course, there's no documentary footage of that. Because you can't have a camera in the middle of a battle, so
that'd be ridiculous.
They go to artist renditions of people who were in the trenches and who drew their impressions of what it was like, and they combine that with the sound effects and people telling stories of their turning around to save their buddy and his buddy's head is blown off, and fucking just that was so effective. I don't know, I forgot. It wasn't like I was just watching pictures that were flashing. It felt like I was watching an actual fucking movie that was progressing.
No. And I thought for some reason it didn't break the cohesion of the film. It actually mended pretty well, and I didn't feel like I was being cheated or anything. It actually felt like battle and all that.
Yeah. It was really good. I'm a big fan of documentaries. This is probably one of the best ones I've ever seen.
Oh, and then they went on and on about living in the trenches.
Oh my God.
Dear God, that must have been fucking hell.
Yeah, when they're talking about the rainy season, how it all turns to mud.
Oh,
and then they pull back to that aerial photograph where you can see these little strips, which are just their, what they call duck boards, which is what they travel on, and everything in between is just pits of just muddy water, just for miles and miles and miles. Oh God, I can't.
I wouldn't have dealt well with that. I don't like my socks getting wet.
Oh well, then you only got one extra pair of socks too in World War One.
You ever just you get a glass of water or something and you spill a little bit on the floor and you go to get something else and you step in just like that. Couple drops of water, I fucking hate that. I got to change my socks. And
I don't like it either, but I usually just deal with it.
No.
Whatever.
And these guys were living in puddles. They were actually sleeping and living in these fetid puddles. And it's literally fetid. Like there's dead bodies in there.
Oh yeah.
This runoff.
The shots, the picture of all the dead rats that they killed, they show that.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was fucked up.
Oh man, yeah. I'm not hardy stock. I'm not.
And the trench foot. They talk about how their boots get sodden with water, and then overnight they freeze, so they can't take them off, and then of course they get frostbite, and then their feet start to eat themselves.
Yeah, well, they showed some pictures of those feet.
Ugh, yeah, black toes. And just oh God, just horrible. Yeah, it was.
I think maybe psychologically, my mind knows that that's all roads lead to that foot. So that's why I am instinctively repelled by wet socks. That's got to be it.
Instinctively, definitely.
Instinctively, yes.
Well, it's an unpleasant feeling. Something that's supposed to be dry, that's wet, is even a piece of bread that gets a couple drops of water on it.
It's ruined.
Throw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not. Bread is not supposed to be moist unless I dip it in soup.
Right.
Or Ujo or something. Yeah.
Purposeful moisture. Random moisture is death.
Just get rid of it.
It's garbage.
Yeah, I know I get it exactly. Yeah, I probably wouldn't do very well in trench warfare either.
Yeah, and I didn't realize they cut them back and forth so much to kind of limit the destruction that artillery could do.
Yeah.
To say like a straight line if they
exactly
wanted to, and bombing.
Yeah, they only focused on infantrymen. They didn't, and artillery. They didn't get any of the pilots or the the cavalrymen. But I think they were focused mainly on English soldiers. Like, they didn't talk anything about, the French side of the war. They didn't really. The only talk of the Germans were the ones that interacted with the Englishmen. They didn't actually tell their story, which I thought was really cool. Like, narrow the focus and give you the best of this one story that we can tell.
Right. And it's kind of funny if you look at that kind of era between that and I'd say maybe the Korean War, like the only thing that makes it seem out of place is that they use horses
right.
to haul everything around. It's kind of funny how static warfare was for almost that entire last century.
Right.
And if you take, if you just didn't show any of the horses stuff, it would look like almost any other battlefield or anything like that.
Yeah. Until they broke out those tanks.
Yeah.
Near the end. And now that was a fucking... Whoever came up with that design was a fucking brilliant man. Like...
Well, yeah, it was climbing over... It was... Go down into a ditch, come back out, and...
Well, it was specifically designed to roll over trenches. Yeah,
right.
Like, it's fucking awesome. Like, the way they set that thing up. Very cool. And I like how they were all top secret, like nobody even knew.
Yeah, well, they were supposed to be top secret.
What is it? What's
There's
a tank?
A couple guys wandering around going, hey, what's under there? What's under that tarp over there? Well, it's a tank, but don't tell anyone that. It's fucking top secret.
Well, he thought it was water tanks. He didn't even know it was...
yeah, that's true. He didn't even know it was a...
He didn't know it was a vehicle.
I'd be disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man.
Well,
I thought we were going to get some fucking
fresh water. I thought we were getting some fucking fresh water up here, but now we got fucking things that are going to use more of our water. Yeah. Yeah, so it was a really, I thought it was a really beautiful movie, really effective movie, and a really interesting, because you don't get a lot, I mean, here in America, we're obsessed with World War II, because that's the one where we got to kick the most ass, but, like World War I gets kind of a short shrift, but I think it's just as fascinating, just as interesting to see all of that.
Yeah, I agree. Was there a lot of trench warfare in World War II?
Not a lot. I mean, with your Bastogne, with the 101st. That was kind of like trench warfare. I mean, they were huddled. It was more foxholes, I guess.
Right, foxholes.
There wasn't like an elongated trench.
What's the point of? I guess I don't get the point of trench warfare. Is it like a game of inches, or you're just hiding until you have a chance to?
Basically, it's a highly defensible position. And you wait until you get a weakness, like you hit the, you get a hit in with artillery just right that takes out a section of the trench. If you can get through the barbed wire, you can take that hold there, and then you can get a foothold in their trench, and then you keep pushing through. So basically, it's absolutely a game of inches. That's exactly what it is. It's for long It's for long periods. Like, God, I can't remember his name, but there was a general in the Civil War who developed the type of trench that they used in World War One, and his whole plan was just to set those up along the border and just fucking hold out until the Union ran out of resources, and they might have won had they done that. But Lee wanted to have a couple of grand victories, to rally the troops, and then they lost at Gettysburg, and then everything went bad after that. Well, that's not true. Things went pretty well for them for a little while after that, but then Grant got a couple of victories and then wrote it out.
I see.
But anyway, that's the Civil War. That's what we're talking about right now.
Right.
I just, I know. I like history. I was going to be a history teacher at one point, and then I figured.
Right.
Then I found out teachers don't make any money at all. Like, not like anything. I make more money than teachers make. It's ridiculous.
Well, that and you got to deal with fucking kids.
So I give They Shall Not Grow Old 5 frostbitten toes.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I
really enjoy this movie. I actually found that I like to put it on when I'm getting ready for bed, just because I don't know that I find the old English voices very soothing.
Right.
They're all very relaxed and very
matter of fact,
genial, and
That's another thing about that British geniality.
Yeah.
They're all very friendly in their way of speaking. And I kind of like that effect.
Yeah. So you're saying there was a documentary after the documentary? My version did not have that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least I don't think it did. Maybe I never watched through the credits.
Did you? The one that I saw, Peter Jackson introduces the film.
Okay. Did you saw it in the theater?
Yeah.
Ah, yes. I didn't see that fancy schmancy version.
So yeah, I followed it. I saw it in the theater, and Peter Jackson kind of does a little intro, and then after the entire film, they do a. I had assumed you had seen this, but they they do a whole nother I want to say it's about a half an hour documentary about how they did this film, and actually. It turns out Peter Jackson is a huge World War I buff. I think his grandfather and great uncle were both veterans of the Great War.
And, they show pictures of him in right before the credits. Yeah,
right. And so he has a huge collection of World War I memorabilia.
Nice.
And so that's how they knew how to get the colors right in all these uniforms, is because he had actual pieces of these uniforms that they could show the color correctors, and then they could get that right.
That's cool.
And apparently,
use that to extrapolate the other colors and whatnot. Probably.
Yeah. So you should try to look for.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna. As soon as we're done here, I'm gonna try. And no, this is one I'll definitely buy on Blu-ray when it comes out.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of this movie. I'm a big fan of a lot of Peter Jackson's work, with the exception of the Hobbit movies and King Kong.
Oh, King Kong! I had totally forgot about that film.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I remembered it.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. I mean,
it's not a great film.
Andy Serkis as the monkey, that's an interesting concept, but it didn't really work for me.
Andy Serkis was King Kong?
Yes.
Huh. Is there a monkey that guy won't play?
No. He'll just give him a mocap suit, and he'll play your monkey, whatever it is.
He'll monkey it up.
And of course, Dead Alive. There's always that.
Dead Alive is fucking
Peter Jackson gem.
The Frighteners is.
Yes, The Frighteners, also an entertaining movie.
And then what's after that? I guess just the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Well, he did that for a long time. So that was 4 3 or 4 or 5 years of his life making that fucking trilogy. So
All right. Well, that was my interview with Timothy Amundsen, and we were talking about They Shall Not Grow Old. Again, I highly recommend that you see that movie if you haven't already. Go check it out. It's still in some like artsy theaters. I don't know when it's going to be released on the old Blu-ray. I've been checking up on it. I'm excited for that. Special features. But anyway, thanks for stopping by. I bought a microphone, and I will talk to you guys next time. Love you.